Northwestern athletics are back.
And this will walk it off!
And so are we at NNN Sports. After a disappointing 2024, Northwestern has spent the offseason doing some soul searching. David Braun finds himself on the hot seat, but has made some interesting additions via the transfer portal. What does this mean for Week 1 and the rest of 2025? Find out right now. Welcome to Wildcat Gameday Preview. I'm your host, Matt Campbell.
Since we're live, I do have to take the... Wow, that is bright. I do have to take these off.
Joined by Pierson Strandquist, Jonah McClure, and Charlie Jacobs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wildcat Gameday Preview, the first Wildcat Gameday Preview of 2025. And of course, three amazing guests, Pierson Strandquist, Jonah McClure. Pierson, of course, a segment regular on NNN. Jonah also does a couple segments for us, should be on desk this fall. And Charlie Jacobs. Ooh, I haven't seen you in a minute. Charlie Jacobs is back for the first edition of Wildcat Gameday Preview in 2025. Guys, how we doing?
Football season,
here,
let's
man.
go.
Yeah, it's hype.
Oh yeah, we're hype. We're hype.
Definitely.
Talk about Northwestern versus Tulane, and this is a pivotal year for Northwestern. A lot of people are saying that. David Braun is on the hot seat, but let's recap how we got there. And this story kind of starts in 2023, Braun's first year, and of course that team completely awesome, led by Ben Bryant, won the Las Vegas Bowl. 2024, they lose Ben Bryant, and Northwestern completely falls apart. Of course, 4-8 record, and kind of a disaster at the quarterback position. Mike Wright struggled and got benched even before Northwestern got to conference play. Northwestern's defense got absolutely cooked. There's no other way to say it, no pun intended. Gave up 26 points a game, the third worst in the Big Ten, 231 pass yards per game. That's also bottom 5 in the Big Ten. And to make matters worse, they lost a ton of key pieces to the transfer portal. Darren Johnson to Oregon, Devin Turner to Baylor, and Kenny Soares to NC State. Overall, 2024, just a straight forgettable year for Northwestern. So that begs the question, how do the Cats rebound in 2025?
I mean, I'll start us off. I think, obviously, you guys are going to talk about Preston Stone. I'm going to leave that more to you. And the offense will be talked about a lot. I think it starts in this DB room. I think this cornerback room has the possibility to be one of the better groups in the Big Ten. Josh Fossil is a lockdown guy, and he really, really broke out against Ohio State, where I'm not saying he locked him up, but he did play very good defense against Jeremiah Smith, who, in my opinion, is the best player in college football. Damon Walters, along with Fossil, were the two best players at the spring practices. They really, really stood out, and they looked like men amongst boys on that field. They were just that good, and I also have a lot of faith in Robert Fitzgerald. It really is a question of who's going to be at that other safety spot and who's going to be at CB2 for me, because these other three guys are maybe... Though that trio might be the strongest trio, I think, for this Northwestern team. And then, obviously, the defensive line. The linebacking crew, a lot of people are more optimistic about it than I am, because I think Matt Uline is fine. I just don't know how good this run defense will be after overall the defense was just not that great last season.
Yeah, I mean,
Run defense is... I didn't mean to cut you off, but we're going to get back to that, because run defense is going to be especially important for Northwestern against Tulane. But Pierson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually also going to go on the defense. I mean, the defensive backs are obviously going to be important, considering that was probably their biggest hole last year. But honestly, I would also say that both Aiden Hubbard and Antosaka have to have great seasons on the edge in order for this team to be successful. I mean, last year going into the season, they were both are coming off pretty good years. I mean, Aiden Hubbard, 6 sacks, 18 solo tackles in 2023. And same with for Antosako, 5.5 sacks and 7 solo tackles. I mean, going into that, you expect them both to get maybe combined 12 sacks on the season. Didn't happen. Aiden Hubbard, still consistent. 6 sacks, 12 solo tackles. But Antosaka did take a step back. Obviously, missed some playing time, had some other issues last year. But going into the season, I think, honestly, the most important thing is if those two guys can be their top selves, this Northwestern team, especially on the defensive end, can just be a lot more showed up. I mean, this offense was so abysmal last year that the defense was just rocked constantly. I mean, they had no breaks, and you would have to assume this year that if the offense is a little better, then those guys can get to that point where they're playing their best. I expect both those guys to combine for probably something close to 14 sacks this season, and I think if they can get to that number, then the Wildcats will be pretty happy.
I will say
the
before
offense here. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, but
Go
just
ahead.
adding on to defense as we're in it. Yes, Saka and Hubbard are both huge pieces, but this D line likes to rotate a lot of players.
That is
So
true.
it's sometimes hard to say that Saka or Hubbard will have a double-digit sack season because of how.
Well, I'm saying more so combined.
McGorgle.
I'm saying combined.
Well, no, yes,
yeah.
I know, but just the way McGorgle runs this defense, it'll be many players. You also forgot about Najee Story, Carmine Bastone, Tyler Gant. You have guys like Callan Campbell, who I think is going to actually take a step up because he didn't play last year. He's the guy I'm looking at. You also have guys on the Brendan Flakes, Miguel Jackson, the transfer, Richie Haggerty. There's just so many names here that are coming in to play on this team, and really a lot of mouths to feed in that defensive line room. And Saka hasn't seen a full season as starter too, but I mean the expectations and the ceiling is through the roof.
Yeah, I think they have to be high too. And Migo Jackson's a name I really like, so we'll talk about that later. But
on the offensive side of the ball, Matt, as you talked about last year, Mike Wright benched very early on in the year. And after that, Jack Lausch as his replacement really did not add too much to this team. He, of qualified starters, finished last in the Big Ten in passer rating last year. And Preston Stone, an obvious upgrade from that, had a pretty solid season in 2023, or looking to carry that into this program after not really playing last season. And I think a lot of that will have to do with the receivers and tight ends too. A lot of tight end additions for this team this year. And I think though the quarterback play wasn't great last year, I think we'll have to see how these new guys play into the field, as well as the running game. Last year, the Wildcats running backs had the second fewest rushing yards in the Big Ten. So they really could not get much going in the air or on the ground. So that duo of Joe Hyman and Cam Porter will hopefully take a step up combined this year.
Yeah, I also want to throw out the name Caleb Komolafe. I think he's going to take a huge step up. Porter's going to be really the short yardage back, just the first, second down guy. Hyman might even end up taking a slot receiver role with his explosiveness. And I also think, especially you pair the running game with the offensive line, and we're going to get into it more even with Tulane, as it's going to be Caleb Tiernan on the left side, and then at guard it seems to be Azomo or Radikai. If those two could really shore up the B gap, runs through there for Porter could be a go-to for this Cats offense. And if teams have to scheme against that, then you open up the play action and you give Preston Stone the chance to throw the deep ball. Last season, Preston Stone was basically overtaken by a quarterback in Kevin Jennings, who was a Heisman candidate, and this year opened the season as one of those guys who's kind of not even just the dark horse to win the Heisman, but his name is definitely being thrown out there. Stone also was injured to end the 2023 season, had a leg injury, and then kind of came still not fully 100% back when he started the season week 0 last year against Nevada, even though he did end up winning the game for them. But you still have to look at the bigger picture, where Stone a couple seasons ago was awesome. His high school resume speaks for itself. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas's history, and it's yet to be seen though, because he has struggled in his career against Power 5 opponents. Now Power 4.
Well, you gotta admit that Preston Stone could be considered one of the best quarterbacks in FBS as of right now. Since 2023, Preston Stone's PFF makes him the 5th best quarterback in all of college football. And listen to the names that are ahead of this guy: Bo Nix, Jackson Dart, Jaden Daniels, and Shadur Sanders. The only 4 that are ahead of Preston Stone. And it seems
Is that
like
single season?
Yes. And it seems like he's gaining a lot of confidence under head coach David Braun. It feels like Braun has a lot of trust in him. He's telling him, look, go be the guy. You're going to be the guy in our shotgun on 3rd down. I trust you to throw the football. And I feel like that speaks to him a lot, considering that 2024 was a kind of a year where Kevin Jennings ends up ripping the reins from him. That could do a lot to a quarterback's psyche. Now Preston Stone's in the power in a tough conference, the Big Ten, one of, if not the strongest conference in all of the FBS. and he's in a pivotal year where Northwestern fans are kind of clamoring at the door, hoping for a bowl game. So there's a ton of pressure put on this guy. So there's a lot of questions around Preston Stone, but I want to talk. I want to go back to Anto Saka, the strong side defensive end for Northwestern. I was doing some research and I came across the Athletic, and Dan Bergler mentioned Anto Saka would be a first round prospect in his 2026 way too early draft projection. He has him going first round, 28th overall to the Lions. So that would make him the 5th edge rusher off of the board and the 8th defensive lineman overall. So I wanted to gauge, where do we think Anto Saka ranks amongst all defensive linemen in college football?
I mean, I think the thing about that draft prediction that surprised me is the Lions at 28. I don't, but that's a separate thing. Obviously,
there was also one that had Field Yates had a mock that had Saka. I think it's 17.
Yeah, Saka is definitely great. I mean, you can obviously he's coming into his junior year, and it's like, yes, Aiden Hubbard might be better statistically this season, but obviously Saka is a beast, right? I mean, all of the coaches from Broad all the way down the line speak so highly of this guy in terms of tenacity, his athleticism, and obviously coming into last season, there was an expectation of him to be that guy already, and obviously did not hit those expectations. But this year, I mean, the door is wide open. Like Charlie said, I mean, he should start a whole season theoretically. Of course, there's obviously the mixing that this team does like to do on the line, but I would hope that if he can play to the level that the coaches like to talk to him as, you could definitely see this guy being in the top 10 conversation for his position, potentially one of the biggest defensive contributors in the entire Big Ten.
Yeah, no, I think what we see a lot from him is not necessarily going in the stat sheet. It's a lot more of just that general, like, kind of fear that he's striking into these offensive linemen and what he's taking away and the opportunities he's allowing for the guys on the other side of the D-line. So I think just his raw, like, athletic abilities, as you talked about, Pierson, will give him the potential to be, again, that top 10 conversation somewhere in the first round of the draft. So I think it'll a lot of that draft stock will depend on the numbers he ends up putting up, but I think he has the talent to be up there with the best.
Not even just the talent, but look at this guy's athletic build. 6'4", 247. Literally the textbook definition of an athletic freak. Something that defensive coordinators look for, would literally salivate over. 3.5 sacks last season. Tied the record for most sacks ever by a Northwestern freshman. 4.5 tackles for loss last season as well. So he's going to cause a ton of problems for Big Ten defenses, especially in the run game. It's hard to stop that, and the only way that you can stop Anto Saka off the edge is to double team him with the tight end. The problem is that enough? Again, athletic freak. I don't think that's enough.
Well, also, if you just look at edge rushers purely in the Big Ten, I don't even know if he cracks the top 5 as much as I really like this guy. You have for USC, you got Braylon Shelby, who is a monster, and he's really on the come up. Also for USC, you got Solomon Tuliaupupu. I think I said that correctly. It's a tough name. Mateo Uyunglele is a beast for Oregon. Mikhail Kamara for Indiana is also just an absolute stud. And then for Penn State, you got Danny Dennis-Sutton, who might end up being one of the top edge rushers off in this draft class. And then Michigan has a pair in Isaiah Gibson and Derek Moore. Well, Saka, I don't know if Saka is up to the level of these guys, but the potential is there. Well, Saka may not produce as much as some of these other guys. His potential is likely what is getting him put so high in these draft predictions. Because I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was taken 2nd overall. Trayvon Walker was taken 1st overall. You have to look at how the NFL evaluates. So it's hard to say that just because Saka's top 20 in mock drafts makes him one of the top 10 edge rushers in the country, because I could probably name 20 guys that I would take over him right now. And it's really the potential that is so intriguing, and the raw athletic ability of this guy that is what is really drawing to these guys making these mock drafts, and also just what he can be. It's really like, what if this happens, then Anto Saka is one of the better edge rushers in the country. But you need to kind of put it into perspective that there are some edge rushers in the country that are just unstoppable. I mean, you have Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, the two now going to be sophomores. You got Kendrick Falk. I mean, LT Overton. There's so many guys. I can keep going on and on. And edge is a premier position in the NFL and in college football, which is why there are so many guys that are so not just highly touted, but also just so efficient and so successful at that position if they're good at it, yet they still may not be in that top tier because of just how important it is to football teams.
And he's thinking that too. Like, he's hearing all of this about how he can be that first round. Obviously, the money that comes with that is beyond anything that, Northwestern, NIL or not, can provide. And so, I mean, you would hope that he would be looking for statistical things. And, you got to hope that that doesn't impact the way he plays the game, the way he helps his teammates, the way he opens up those gaps. For him to you don't want him to become a selfish player necessarily. And I don't think he is, and that's not his personality. But that is one thing definitely to look for. Is just like he wants that. It's like the equivalent to like players in a contract year in the NFL. It's like this is his chance to be that guy and to elevate himself. And so we'll see what happens.
It's an interesting conversation about the Northwestern front. Anto Saka leading that front. But let's talk about the transfers in the freshman class. Per 247 Sports, Northwestern ranks 17th in the conference with their transfer class and 60th in the nation when it comes to the freshman class. So I just wanted to know, what is our favorite addition? And I'll start us off. What's our favorite addition to this Northwestern roster? And there's a lot of choices here. Griffin Wilde from South Dakota State, Chase Farrell from Stanford, Xavier Gray from Liberty. But I'm going to go with a guy that's competing for that strong side linebacker spot, Yanni Karlaftis from Purdue. I think he's the replacement for Xander Mueller, meshing super well with Tim McGargyle. And Mac Ulan's kind of taking him under his wing right now, teaching him the defense. And he's been playing all over. Strong side linebacker, weak side linebacker. He's been playing the Mike as well, which he played at Purdue last season. He ranked 4th on Purdue, top 4 in Purdue in tackles the past 2 seasons. Last year, 57 tackles, 33 solo tackles, which is ridiculous. I think from a middle linebacker spot, 33 tackles in the Big Ten. There's a ton of shifty running backs in this conference. So I think that's super, super, super impressive. I think this is going to be the guy on that strong side. And I mentioned Anto Saka kind of having trouble with those double teams because the Big Ten is going to send a lot of double teams to that strong side. This is the person that's going to blow up the C gap. And he's going to cause a lot of trouble, a lot of chaos for running backs. I think that was a great move by David Braun to bring him in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I'm going to go with the easy answer here. I mean, Griffin Wilde is definitely my pick. I mean, you go from a team that, yes, they had an abysmal offense last year, and those problems probably did not stem from a guy like AJ Henning or any of those wide receivers. But when you come in and get a guy who last season posted 1,200 yards, 71 receptions, 12 touchdowns, that is the guy for South Dakota State. And yes, it is South Dakota State. Obviously, the difference between South Dakota State and who they were playing, regardless of them playing a couple games against FCS opponents, it's like this is your number 1 receiver coming into the season. And obviously, this depends on how good Preston Stone is. But if Preston Stone is where he's projected to be, at least being a Big Ten league average quarterback, I mean, Griffin Wilde should go wild, right? I mean, this is a guy who went from 400 yards to 1,200 yards. I mean, that's just crazy. And he's someone who Lujan recruited. And so it's like it's the type of thing where like you have that connection already. There's a reason why he came here. He had other options. He wanted to come here to be that guy. And I think that if he can be, he should be super exciting, super explosive, and someone who can be like a Joseph Hyman, but just more consistently. And then I guess if I had to say one other name, I mentioned Migo Jackson before. I mean, I don't actually know what his impact is going to be, but when they rotate that defensive line a ton, this is a guy who, despite being injured in his first year for Utah State, almost set a career high in tackles, right? And so, yes, obviously he didn't get much playing time. He probably won't get much playing time at Northwestern, but he's definitely someone who can eat those minutes and someone who I just like as a guy on the team. I mean, maybe that's not the best compliment, but, I think that you need those types of guys on a team like Northwestern where you have to limit mistakes and force other teams to make mistakes themselves.
Charlie and Pierson, you guys talked about the defensive backs earlier. I feel like Dylan Tatum from Michigan State is a solid depth addition. He was hurt for almost all of last season, but in the year before, he finished, I think, sixth on Michigan State in total tackles. Seventh, sorry, and 2.5 tackles for loss. Just really solid guy for the corners, and I think he'll add something to this team.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the obvious answer. I'm going to take Preston Stone. Joking. We've already talked enough about him. Give me Fred Davis. I think he's going to be that guy who's going to be that CB2 on the opposite side of Josh Fussell. You got Fitzgerald in the nickel, David Walter the free safety, either Gardner Wallace or Dylan Tatum running that strong safety spot, and then you got Davis there. But another name I want to bring up, just in case things happen, is Jack Sadowski, transferred from Iowa State. Oh, had an okay career there. Didn't play much, but coming in as a junior transfer, and he's just good depth to have in this linebacker room, which right now Braun has named it to be Mac Uline starting opposite Braden Bruce.
Yeah, I do like that Sadowski addition. Him and Karlaftis competing for that strong side starting spot. Still no linebacker named on that side of the field for Saturday. Speaking of which, I want to preview the game now heading into Tulane, a game in which I guess the Green Wave is going to look to the ground. Per Charlie, Saturday is going to be a rain game. Thunderstorms expected in the area of New Orleans. And there's still no starter as of today. Tuesday, as of this recording, Iowa transfer Brendan Sullivan, who also formerly played for Northwestern a couple years ago, suffered a high ankle sprain last Thursday. So that leaves the QB competition down to a three-man race. It's Jake Retzlaff from BYU, Caden Somoza from Ball State, and Donovan Leary from Illinois. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around the Tulane quarterback situation. I expect them to run the ball a ton. They love running out of that 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and 1 running back in the backfield. They love to run the ball inside. They made some really, really great additions at running back. But I want to know your guys' thoughts of this team and how Northwestern should attack. What flaws should they be aware of, and how Northwestern could excel in stopping the Green Wave this Saturday.
All right, I'll start us off here. Donovan Leary is already out of the quarterback race. There's no question about that, because last Saturday, the scrimmage, it was reps between Retzlaff and Samanza. Samanza's been there a little bit longer than Retzlaff after Retzlaff left BYU and then walked on to Tulane, actually. So Retzlaff's still probably even learning the playbook. I mean, if you're a professional, you should be able to learn playbooks fast. Like, I'm sure any of us, maybe you can, Matt, would be better at learning a football playbook. But even if Sullivan was healthy, I think it still would have been Retzlaff or Samanza. Samanza, he was all right at Ball State. Retzlaff was pretty good at BYU. I mean, people are going to say he was better than he really was. Yes, he did make some big plays last season. But I said this on a WNUR podcast. I don't think quarterback matters for Tulane in this game. As we said, the weather, it's going to be almost 80% humidity, possible chance of thunderstorms, 80% chance of rain, and it's in the South. In the South, like some of these guys, Tulane also does have a lot of transfers, but so does Northwestern. And a lot of these players on both sides of the ball haven't really played a hot game in the South in possible rain or wet, humid conditions, where they're going to not just be on the field, they're going to be sitting on the bench in just swampy weather. And it's not going to be a fun time really being there and kind of experiencing that environment. Plus, Tulane has kids back on campus, and at running back, they did lose one of the better running backs in the country, Mekhi Hughes, now at Oregon, but they did bring in a couple guys, and it's probably going to be between 3 guys. Let me just find these names real quick. Doesn't matter. Tulane is going to be running with 3 backs. They have 1 returner and then 2 transfers, 1 from FAU and 1 from Louisville, but really, I think this game is going to be one on the defensive side of the ball and the ground, and I don't know if we're doing predictions yet, but I am going to take Tulane in this game.
We'll get to predictions in a minute, but you mentioned the running back room. I want to talk about that Louisville transfer, Maurice Turner, who had a pretty good season for Louisville. I think off the top of my head, he put up about 150 yards in the bowl game, but averaged 5 yards a carry. He was hurt for a substantial amount of time, and after a couple games got hurt, came back in, I think it was mid-November, to join Louisville again and played in that bowl game. I believe he's going to be the running back one on this squad. And this is a guy that loves that inside run game. I was watching a little bit of film on him today. Has great awareness inside, knows when to bounce the ball, knows what gaps to hit. And I think that causes a lot of problems for Northwestern. Granted, I mean, if you have Aiden Hubbard and Anto Saka on your defensive line, you should be fine. But if that run breaks off into the secondary somehow, then I think the Cats are in big, big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the run going into the secondary is something we saw a ton last year. Obviously, this is a different team, an improved team, but that is going to be a problem. Like, regardless of if we can mock any of these guys, for the defense as a whole to be better, for specific players to be better, I mean, Tulane should have elite play calling when it comes to the run game, and theoretically, like Mike Charlie said, with them definitely having the home field advantage with their students back on campus, and obviously just it's a far travel day for any Northwestern fan, and a smaller school as well, obviously. But, I mean, you can put all those factors aside. I think Northwestern should also have those same problems, right? Like, it's not just Tulane sitting on the bench, it's Northwestern as well. And so that also, unfortunately, takes Preston Stone and these new transfers like Griffin Wilde away, right? I mean, of course, maybe they'll have a couple plays that will be impactful, but then it also comes down to kind of that running back room for Northwestern that we talked about in depth. So I won't get too much into that, but I think the biggest thing looking into this game as Tulane is 21, they were 2-10, went to 22, number 7 in the country, 12-2 team, won the Cotton Bowl over USC, surprised everyone. 23 repeated that, 11-3, lost in the conference championship. Last year, new coach John Summerall comes in for Willie Fritz, 9-5, lost conference championship against Army and lost their bowl game in the Gasparilla Bowl against Florida. So this team is going to be coming in regardless of how many people they have turning over. It's a team that's mad, right? They're looking at this game as just as Northwestern's like, we want to upset them, we want to have the game that proves that we're better than our team last year, Tulane might want it even more. And so I think that's what this game is going to come down to. Whenever you have weather as a factor, it just comes down to who wants this more. And maybe that's too simplistic, but honestly, that's the way I think about it. And it's like, if Tulane really is super mad about how their season ended up finishing, which I wouldn't be, but I'm sure John Summerall is trying to fire them up in that way. It just depends, can David Braun fire up Northwestern in that same way, and we'll see what happens.
I feel like this Tulane defense is kind of going a little under the radar. They have Maurice Westmoreland, who had 7.5 sacks the last 2 years, and no Tulane players had more sacks than that since 2020. They tied the FBS best with 6 defensive touchdowns and had 22 turnovers last year. So with that weather, we might see some sweaty hands, some slip in the ball a little bit. So that'll be a bit of an advantage for them. And I think this improved Wildcat offense will have to face this pretty strong Green Wave defense.
And I also just want to add too, I mean, Pierson, you mentioned John Summerall. I really am buying this Tulane team this year. They are probably, they're one of the two most likely, them and Boise State are the two most likely teams to make the college football playoff from a group of 5 conference. And I just think if you're going in week 1 on the road against a possible and maybe even likely playoff team, down 6-point dogs, it's just not a place you want to be if you're Northwestern. But David Braun in his interviews, he's very happy, excited to start the season, and love to see it.
Yeah, college football playoff contender. I got that from Charlie a couple days ago. I don't know if I'm buying into that with Tulane. It seems like there's a ton of chaos as to who's starting, who's not, what this game is going to look like. So I'm not buying it. I think they're going to have a rocky start to the year and they'll recover, but I don't think they're going to be in contention at all. But a potential Cinderella run might be imminent for Northwestern, and I say that because per PFF, Northwestern has the 7th toughest schedule in the nation. Is there a potential Cinderella run here? Does Northwestern get a national ranking? As crazy as that might sound to ask, you gotta be thinking 8-9 wins could get Northwestern into the AP poll, or at least some votes. As unlikely as that is, are they bowl eligible? Are they going to crumble under the pressure? What is David Braun's expectations for this season? I want your guys' thoughts on that. I want your record predictions, and I want your game predictions for this Tulane game.
All right, I can go first. I mean, going into the season, obviously really disappointing last year after Braun went off to a great start winning the Las Vegas Bowl, as we talked about. This kind of reminds me of kind of that kind of gray area they were right before, Fitzgerald started winning games. I mean, it was kind of like, where will this team go? And from 2015 to 2018, 36 wins. 2020, obviously, that was the last time they were ranked. They got into the top 10, had a 7-2 season, made the Big Ten championship, and I don't think they're going to be at that height. And obviously, I think part of it is I think the best way a lot of writers have put this is when Northwestern is in contention for the Big Ten, the Big Ten is down, and the Big Ten might be a little bit down this year. I don't know how much. In terms of just I think that, yes, the top echelon of the conference is going to smack Northwestern. The Oregon game, the Michigan game, you could even throw in the Minnesota game probably. I mean, these are really going to be tough games regardless of Northwestern being home or away. To the point where maybe the Purdue game is the only game from the Big Ten that you can guarantee or at least hope to guarantee they win. At the same time, though, I want to be optimistic because the way this team always won games under Fitzgerald and the way they've won games under David Braun has been limiting mistakes, right? It's the type of thing where they'd always come in that great stretch. They'd win 24-16, something like that, and they'd somehow just pull it out because they made the least mistakes and they capitalized on the other team's mistakes more. And I think that's what they're going to have to do in this Tulane game and in any game for the rest of the season because they probably won't be the best team on paper for most of the season. And so, with that being said, I mean, going into this Tulane game, it's going to be tough. I would love to see them come out and surprise me. I'm probably going to pick Tulane here just simply because I do agree with Charlie. Even if this Tulane team isn't the team that comes out of the American Conference, they're definitely going to be in the conference championship conversation. They should be at the top no matter what. Even if the quarterback room is shaky, I'm going to go with Tulane winning 22-18. We'll go with a close one here. I think that, it's really going to be a lot of just gritty football. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this Northwestern team gets surprised people. Maybe we'll get a little bit of sun and actually get to see what Preston Stone is all about. And if that happens, I think that completely changes that game script. But as the weather is set right now, I think you just have to go with Tulane just based on the fact that their experience and the run game is probably stronger than Northwestern's.
I like the fact that you pointed out that Northwestern pulls games out by limiting mistakes, and I wrote an article for Inside, and one of the major points of emphasis I put in there was limiting mistakes. Going back to last year, they turned the ball over 4 times in the first 2 games last season, 3 lost fumbles and an interception. Northwestern ranked 6th in the Big Ten in interceptions and 3rd in fumbles, so mistakes were a huge part of the season last year, and that probably explains the 4-8 record. That explains why Northwestern beat Miami of Ohio only by a 7-point margin when they could have easily won by 21-28 points. And that also explains the Duke loss in overtime, a team that Northwestern should have beat. Absolutely brutal. Yeah, you're right. A team that Northwestern should have beat but didn't. But yeah, limiting mistakes is going to be a huge, huge part, not only of this game, because Tulane does not make many mistakes, and I doubt that Tulane is going to squander these opportunities off of mistakes. But in terms of a long-term thinking, right? Looking ahead to this entire season, you got a brand new quarterback, you got a not brand new, I would say revamped receiver group. If things hit the fan in the first game, first week, or first 2 weeks, then Northwestern might not recover. Northwestern was able to pull things out last year in the first 2 weeks. They were able to get wins up on the board. They were 2-1 after week 3, but Mike Wright was on the bench after week 3, after the Eastern Illinois game, and look what happened. Northwestern completely fell apart. The same thing cannot happen this year, especially because this team is so much older, so experienced. There's going to be a changing of the guard. Northwestern can't afford to make as many mistakes this season.
I owe you a record prediction, dude, don't I? I'm gonna be a little bit more optimistic. I think that, like I said, this team could be that type of Northwestern team that pulls out games really close in that kind of teen to 20s range. I'm gonna be positive, and I think this is probably maybe not the ceiling, but close to it. I'm gonna go with 7-5 for this team, which is definitely an optimistic prediction. I have them being bowl eligible. Obviously, it could flip on its head and be the complete opposite. Like Matt said, if they start off really slow, they're probably not going to recover. So this is just me hoping that they do better, hoping that I'm wrong about this Tulane prediction. I think the other thing with that, Matt, you mentioned the Miami of Ohio game. That game at halftime was 3-3. you have to start faster, regardless of if obviously Tulane is way better than Miami of Ohio, and obviously there's rain and stuff, but you have to start faster to begin the year. David Braun can say all of this stuff in press conferences about how this team is ready, how they're excited, how they want to come to Tulane and be the dogs against a Southern team. But if you start off with only getting a field goal in the first half, especially in a non-conference game and a team that theoretically is less strong than a lot of your Big Ten opponents, you're really not going to go anywhere. So if I had to say anything about like a key to the game or what I wanted to see from the Cats, regardless of if they win or lose, I want to see them score a touchdown within the first 2 drives. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think that if they do that, regardless of the outcome, there's positives to take away.
I feel like this is a team full of upside, and so much of their season depends on guys rising to that next level. Preston Stone coming back to that 2023 form. Much of this defense, the returners stepping up, taking that step that they didn't really. Some of them may have been playing better than others, but like overall, the whole position groups will just need to show off that they know how to play as a group and that they can really play like a bowl eligible team. And I feel like, Pierson, like you talked about, this Tulane game is just so big for the entire season as a whole. And I feel like right off the bat, like you said, with that, maybe if they score in the first couple drives, it's like, here's that upward trend. Here's the upside. Preston Stone leading the team. Here's the defense making a stop. Just stuff like that that can carry that positive momentum forward. I feel like with a win in that game, I can see this team going 6-6 or 7-5. But if they start off with that loss to Tulane, which I think is more likely than not, unfortunately, I see them heading towards another 4-8 season simply because of how hard this schedule is. Nothing against the Wildcats, but I think having to play 2 of the top 3 teams in Oregon and Penn State and very competitive teams in Minnesota and Illinois, it'll just be tough to rack up a bunch of wins to be bowl eligible.
Yeah, I'm gonna go straight in with my record prediction. I'm going 4-8. I think the wins are Western Illinois, UCLA, UL Monroe, and Purdue. I don't really. Even Purdue and UCLA could be tough. More so UCLA, but I'm high on a lot of teams in the Big Ten. I'm really high on USC. I'm really high on Minnesota. Those are 2 teams Northwestern plays, and at USC, home for Minnesota, but in November, just really tough. Looking at this Tulane game, I don't really care about what they got going on at quarterback. And even though I do really like this roster and I do really like this team, my optimism has to be shattered or a little bit lower than it has been, because last season I was way too optimistic and that got shattered down. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than just let down for thinking too high of something that maybe isn't. So I'm definitely tempering expectations. So I'm going to say 4-8, and I'm going to go 2 Big Ten wins. But then for this Tulane game, before the weather, I would have said 31-20 Tulane in favor, and now with the weather, I'm going down to 21-10 Tulane getting the victory at home.
I agree with Charlie. I'm also pretty high on a lot of these Big Ten teams, but I think I'm pretty high on Northwestern. I mean, when am I not? I'm usually an optimist, and some of my takes have been ridiculous. But I genuinely do think that there's been a lot of growth with this team in the offseason, and I think this team could play spoiler to a Minnesota or play spoiler to Michigan, even as unlikely as that may seem. So I'm going to go with 6-6. I think that's a little bit of it's a hot take, but more so a lukewarm take. I don't think that's unreasonable to think that Northwestern can pull off 2 upsets in the Big Ten and find themselves bowl eligible at the end of the season. Yeah, they have a top 10 schedule in the country. That doesn't mean that Northwestern's a scrub. That doesn't mean Northwestern's bottom of the Big Ten like they were last season. Northwestern has a brand new quarterback, brand new receiver group, brand new linebacker group that I think is going to hold strong, hold firm, and stacks up pretty decent against a lot of these teams in the Big Ten. So I wouldn't be surprised if Northwestern is playing football in December. I think that they can hold their own in the conference, and Yeah, it's tough to play Penn State and Oregon. It doesn't matter if you're playing Oregon at home. I expect Oregon to run them out of there. But for you to sit here and tell me that Minnesota's going to come to Wrigley Field and beat Northwestern, I think is asinine. I don't think that's going to happen.
You know what? I'm pretty happy. You know, I have a higher or not expectations, really prediction than Matt Campbell. That means I'm truly an optimist this season, guys. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you all know that I'm a Chicago sports fan. A lot of the people listening probably do, and it's like I just want to be at least somewhat optimistic about one of the teams that I like this year, and so I'm picking Northwestern. But
well, you got the Cubs. You got the Cubs. Your Cubs are rolling.
Not optimistic. Well, I mean, I'm not optimistic,
Cubs,
but
you got your
Let's go Mets
season. Oh my god! All right,
I don't know. Well, we'll see, but it's probably.
so we got two optimists over here and on top, and at the bottom of your screen, what, two pessimists? Really?
Not pessimist, realist, in my opinion.
One pessimist and one realist at the
I
bottom.
mean, they said this. They said the same record, dude. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like for me, I said they'd lose this game. I gave a realist game prediction and a really optimistic record prediction, which probably doesn't make any sense, but I don't really care. But at the end of the day, I mean, for this Northwestern team, it's all about taking next steps, right? I think to leave everyone off with just kind of like David Braun, whether he's on the hot seat or not, I don't think he is right now. Maybe he will be by the end of the season. It's about building to that new stadium, right? That new stadium, there's not only opportunity for NIL, for just exciting the fans, exciting the Big Ten, exciting the national scene, right? Like, they're getting Big Noon kickoff this year. Wouldn't be surprised if they get College Game Day next year just because of how nice their stadium is, right? And that should be a draw for players in the future. So, yes, I mean, this Northwestern team, if we're being really real, probably will be in not only in the bottom half of the Big Ten, but probably one of the bottom teams in the entire Power Four potentially, which kind of sucks, but just is what it is. But I would say that you need to just take positives from every game. I feel like last year I couldn't. I feel like last year there were many games where I was like, what am I supposed to look at from this game that I'm happy about? This year, as long as every game I'm seeing something positive, some growth, going into next season, this program's in a lot better place no matter what, and that's what I'm hopeful towards.
I didn't even realize that they already said what Big Noon Kickoff is, because I always feel like they do it like College Game Day where they announce it as they go, but I guess not.
Yeah, Oregon.
I know.
It's
yeah, it's Oregon.
Yeah, but it should be fun. It'll be fun to be there.
Big Noon Kickoff on the lakefront and a bold College Game Day prediction from Pierson Strandquist for the year of 2026.
I actually don't call that crazy because I think week 0, I'm pretty sure the premier matchup, unless it's a Dublin game, Northwestern plays Colorado. I think in week 0. I might be wrong
but
about that.
It's at Colorado though. But we'll see.
This year it's home. Next year I think it's home.
It is home.
And the year after it's away.
Oh,
I think 26 Colorado comes to Evanston, and I'm pretty sure it's week 0. That will probably be College Game Day, especially with the new stadium.
Yep, I like
if
that.
It's done.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
That is very
Chicago
true.
Construction, but all right.
TB. Any final thoughts on Northwestern, the season outlook, the Tulane game?
That was my final thoughts.
Josh Fussell is all I gotta say is I think Josh Fussell is gonna elevate himself into one of the top defensive backs in the entire Big Ten. I'm still taking Caleb Dowd. I'm still taking Coy Parrish. I'm still taking Dylan Dinneman. I'm still taking D'Angelo Pons, and I'm still probably taking AJ Harris, but I think he's right there.
I agree with that 100%. I think Josh Fussell is going to be top 10, if not top 5. In that defensive back group in the Big Ten this season. Jonah, any final thoughts that you want to spit out before we go off the air?
I feel like David Braun's a good head coach, and he's going to prove that this year. Whether or not the record is as good as people want is different. But David Braun knows how to run a football program.
He is a defensive-minded guy, and he made some very good defensive acquisitions this season, so we'll see how it comes to fruition.
But he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. That also matters. That also matters.
Nice said hi to me one time in Walter Athletic Center.
That's awesome. Sure.
Well, you're going to cut that out.
Yeah, cut that out to whoever's editing this. I'm editing this, so it's gonna stay in.
Are you gonna edit that? Are you gonna edit you saying that you're editing it in?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm cutting this. Okay. Thank you guys for your time. We want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in to a long Wildcat Game Day preview. Don't necessarily know how long this is going to be after editing, but pretty long on our end. I think coming up on 45 minutes. So there's a lot to talk about. An interesting Northwestern team to look at. An interesting Big Ten conference, especially after last season, how dominant it was. Very interesting conference for Northwestern to be in this year. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Excited for the game Saturday. We'll be back next week to recap what happens and look ahead to Western Illinois. So for Pierson Strandquist, Jonah McClure, Charlie Jacobs, I'm your host Matt Campbell, and we'll see you next week. And as always, go Cats.